Welcome to the show. It's March Madness time, and that's going to be kind of a theme of our show this week. My guest this week will be West Liberty University men's basketball coach Jim Crutchfield, one of the most successful basketball coaches in the country. We'll be talking about their run here into the NCAA tournament. We'll also be talking about the NCAA Division I conference tournaments and NCAA tournament. But first, let's turn our attention to our regular features. I want to start off with a community champion this week, and that is the Wheeling Park High School speech team. They have now won the state championship 38 years in a row. I did not misspeak, 38 years in a row. Now, I'm going to be 42 this month. That means for just about my entire life, they have been the state champions in speech. And I don't care what you're doing in life, whether it be speech, whether it be some form of sport, whether it be something in your career, to be able to be the top of something, to win 38 years in a row is just remarkable. And what they've been able to do with that program, what the kids have been able to do, the coaches who have been pretty consistent over the years have been able to do with that program is just something that really deserves a pat on the back. So congratulations to all of the many students who were a part of that team this year that once again won the state championship. And congratulations to all the students and teachers who have been a part of that streak over the 38 years that it has existed. And wouldn't surprise me if next year they get 39. It is the expectation now when you've done it that many years in a row. So kudos to that speech team. Next up, the quote of the week. And since we're talking March Madness, went with the basketball direction, a guy that I don't always necessarily agree with, and I'm not sure I agree with this quote from him in particular, and that is Charles Barkley, who is always quotable. But he said, "See, my hope and dream is that people have a good time watching basketball. It's not church. It's not serious." Well, all right, I'm not so sure about that, Sir Charles. I mean, I think it is serious to a lot of people, and people do take it very serious. But I think there are some words of wisdom to be had in this quote from Charles Barkley, which is that it is a game at the end of the day. And if you're a sports person, if you're competitive like I am, you always want your team to win. Whether you're playing, you're coaching, or you're a fan, you want your team to come out on top. But he is right in the sense that it is a game, and it's not church, it's not life and death, even though we take it that way sometimes. So have a good time watching your teams this March, whether it be following one of the high school teams down to the state tournament, whether it be watching West Liberty or Wheeling Jesuit in their respective tournaments, or watching the Mountaineers or any of the other teams that you may follow in the NCAA tournament. You know, have a good time doing it. But remember, at the end of the day, your family's still going to be there to hug you at the end of the day. They're going to love you. They're going to care about you. You're going to go to work the next day. So have a good time doing it, and don't give yourself a heart attack in the process. Next up, our legal tip this week. And the legal tip starts with a question that I've had people asking me from time to time, which is, what is a deposition? I have a lot of people say it to me, that even people, I'm not their lawyer, they say, hey, I've got to go give a deposition in a case. What's a deposition? A deposition is sworn testimony under oath. Let's start off with that. It doesn't take place in the courtroom, though, typically. You usually will be in a lawyer's office, and basically if you are a witness to some type of matter, usually a civil case, which is not a criminal case, two types of cases, criminal and civil. A civil case is where one person is bringing a lawsuit against another. And if you have some knowledge pertaining to that matter, just because you didn't see something happen, an incident or whatever, you may have some other knowledge that surrounds the event or the people involved or something that led up to it or something in the aftermath of it. You may be asked to give a deposition. Sometimes you may even be subpoenaed to give a deposition. And it is sworn testimony under oath where you'll be asked to raise your hand and tell the truth, just like you were in a courtroom. You're subject to the same laws regarding perjury, just as if you were in a courtroom and there are a judge and jury sitting there. And basically the lawyers will ask you questions about the knowledge you have surrounding the issues involved with that lawsuit. You have rights. You can have a lawyer present with you if you want. Most of the time there's not a need to do that. But you can have a lawyer there if you want. And it's probably a good idea if you think that you may have information that could cause you some type of harm or issues. It's good to consult and always get the advice of a lawyer if you think you need one. But typically an independent witness will not have a lawyer with them in a deposition. But the lawyers will ask you questions. People ask me, well, how long does it last? It can last anywhere from the short end of a half an hour, which is unusual, to all day, which is also unusual. The typical deposition will last a couple hours. And it's not a contest of, it's not a marathon where you're tested to see how long you can sit there and answer questions. You can take a break to go to the bathroom. You can take a break to get lunch. Most lawyers will tell you at the beginning, if you need to take a break, just let me know. So the most important thing to remember is you have to tell the truth. As I said earlier, you are subject to the same laws regarding perjury, in other words, not giving false testimony, that you would be if you were in a courtroom. You've sworn to tell the truth. So the most important thing is to remember to tell the truth. If you don't remember something, that's okay. You know, it's all right to say, I don't remember. That's better than to guess or to give a false answer. So if you don't remember something, and that's the truthful answer, I don't remember, I don't recall is fine to say. So that's basically what a deposition is. And at the end of it, there's a court reporter there typing everything up that's said. And at the end of that, you know, a couple weeks later, the court reporter will send you the copy of the transcript saying what was said. You have a chance to make changes if you elect to do that. You can also waive that right to make changes if you want. And sometimes it even gets videotaped by a videographer. But that's basically what a deposition is and how it works. We're going to need to take a break. When we come back, I'll have with me West Liberty University men's basketball coach Jim Crutchfield talking about the Toppers' big, exciting conference championship victory recently, and they're now heading into the NCAA tournament. Stay with us here on the Jamie Bordas Show.
Don't forget to do your homework.
All right, Mom. Trick or treat.
Here you go. Happy Halloween.
For your home, for your life, for more than 50 years, DeNoon Lumber.
We've obtained the record results in almost every field of law.
And other attorneys can't say we've had the largest verdict in this field. We can. We've done these things. We've tried these cases. We've gotten the big results. We've gotten the big verdicts. That sets us apart.
I think that says something to insurance companies. It says something to corporations that this is a firm to be reckoned with.
It's not the size of the verdict that's so important. It's the change that we hope to bring about.
Bordas and Bordas, fighting for justice.
Welcome back to the show. This is my favorite time each week when I have a guest with me, and this week I have a very special guest, West Liberty University men's basketball coach Jim Crutchfield. Coach, thanks for being on the show this week.
Thanks for having me, Jamie.
You've been one of the most successful coaches in college basketball since taking over the ranks at West Liberty. Winning percentage up there at the top when you look at the different levels of men's basketball throughout the NCAA. And coming off of a big conference win, first time ever winning the Mountain East Conference Championship, new conference, and had won it with the WVAIC, but now winning this conference title, and it's always special to do something the first time.
It is, and the Mountain East Conference, this is the 4th year for the conference tournament, and we have actually been the #1 seed the previous 3 years and didn't win it, and we won it from the 2 seed this year. But the funny thing, in the last 17 years, only West Liberty, that 3 or 4 times, has won it 3 times for the #1 seed spot. Normally the #1 seed does not win the tournament. 14 of the last 17 years it's been won by another seed out of the 2, 3, 4 bracket.
You know, I've heard people say over the years with basketball that sometimes it's so hard to string together so many wins in a row that maybe you don't want to win the conference tournament because you want to get that loss in before the NCAA tournament. But do you subscribe to that, or how do you look at it?
No, I've never bought into that.
Yeah.
I want to win them all.
That's right.
You know, people say, you know, the one year we were actually undefeated and going in and say, you know, you might be good to lose one. I thought, no, I don't know that it's ever good to lose one. All those sayings, it's good to lose one. It's tough to beat an opponent 3 times or whatever. Once the ball is tossed up, I think it's all forgotten. You know, you just play the game.
You know, let's talk a little bit about that conference tournament. I mean, you know, as you said, coming from the 2 seed spot and had to have the semifinal win over Wheeling Jesuit, who you'd split with in the regular season, overtime games, I think both times, if I remember correctly, and always seems to be exciting. We play, but then, you know, beat them, then get to that championship game, and you know, had to face some adversity in the championship game.
And even in the quarterfinal, we were lucky to get through the quarterfinal game to get to Wheeling Jesuit. We had to win the last seconds, which is pretty common sometimes. Sometimes it's good to just have a close game going in, relaxes you a little bit. But you have to be pretty resilient to win the conference tournament because you play Friday night, Saturday night, and then Sunday afternoon. You know, we and Wheeling played the nightcap game, and we have to turn around and play at 3 o'clock in the afternoon in the championship game. So it's not an easy thing to do, but it's kind of the same for everybody. But it's exciting. You know, the atmosphere in the tournament is always exciting.
One of the things that seems to be occurring in the Mountain East is that your team has had so much success here over the course of the last decade or so that it seems to have raised the play of the entire conference. I mean, I always think in sports, when you play good competition on a regular basis, you get better, and it seems like a lot of the other programs are getting better as well.
Well, you're a coach, and you know how it works. Your goal is to beat people, and if you're losing to someone, generally coaches, and these are guys in our conference that are great coaches, they're professional, that's what they do for a living. Their job is to win, and they're going to do what they have to do to win, which brings you to that next level if the bar is set a little bit higher. And obviously a couple teams, Wheeling Jesuit and Fairmont State, they've been in the top ranking, 20 rankings now for the last 2 or 3 years. Fairmont spent a lot of the time at the #1 spot. The bar has gotten a little bit higher, and coaches do what they do. They try to win basketball games or football games or whatever, and it's caused them to bring in better players. Whatever it takes to win, that's what coaches do.
You now have this Atlantic region game against, of all people, Wheeling Jesuit in the first round. Not at home. You've hosted the Atlantic region a number of times, but down in Fairmont this time, they got the #1 seed. You just knocked them off last week. What do you think about the draw that your team got? First of all, having to go down to Fairmont, and second of all, the committee placing you against Wheeling Jesuit, your crosstown rival, for the 4th time this season in the very first round.
And I've been on that committee before, and I've always fought, don't let teams play teams from your own conference in the first round in regional play. But they just go by the numbers, and they think where things fall, there's a system in place, and evidently that's how it fell in place. So you just say, why not? Let's play them again. I think we're going to play them every Saturday. This will be the 3rd Saturday in a row we've played them. We'll just probably continue that on through the spring. It's a great rivalry game. I think the players kind of look forward to playing each other. I know because there's a bigger crowd, there's more excitement. So as a coach, you say, tell us who to play. We'll be there, get your team ready, and toss the ball up in here and see what happens.
So game Saturday at noon, what do you do to prepare your team? Obviously, familiarity with the opponent this time, but what do you do to prepare a team for this tournament where you have one team and then you got to get ready for another team, and really 2 teams, because you don't know who if you win, you're going to play next, the winner of some other game. You don't know who that'll be yet. So how do you go through that process?
We probably do less scouting for future opponents than most teams do in tournament play. And we've had a good record of advancing in tournament play, so you'd think we probably would do more, but we actually do less. We're preparing for Wheeling Jesuit. We don't ever bring up, obviously, the next 2 possible opponents, which would be Shippensburg or Virginia Union. If we're lucky enough to win, we'll do a cram course within 24 hours, a little video session. There are sometimes cases where we may have a few things ready. We can prepare without telling the players, and most coaches do that. And we'll do a little bit of that maybe on Virginia Union and Shippensburg, saying if we win, we have something in place ready to go. But for the most part, I like to think at West Liberty, we probably do less scouting because we try to control the game ourselves. We try to dictate the tempo and the flow of the game, where we're not so much trying to worry about what other people do. We want them to worry about what we're going to do.
We need to take a break. When we come back, I'll continue speaking with West Liberty University men's basketball coach Jim Crutchfield about what to expect in the NCAA tournament and how they've had the success they've been able to have over the course of the past number of years here. Stay with us on the Jamie Bordas Show.
Panhandle Cleaning and Restoration has been restoring homes after disasters for nearly 4 decades. Through that experience, we present Panhandle Custom Homes, Kitchens, and Baths. We handle your entire project, from concept to completion, working with you every step of the way. From the budget-minded upgrade to a fully custom remodel, you can trust the Panhandle name. Panhandle Custom Homes, Kitchens, and Baths. Welcome home.
I was the oldest of 9 children, so as a result of that, I grew up fighting battles for my brothers and sisters, and we grew up in some pretty tough neighborhoods. I saw juveniles and women being mistreated, and I thought that it would be a wonderful thing to be able to fight for people that were less fortunate and that couldn't fight for themselves. The thing that I enjoy still is helping people and fighting fights that other people sometimes weren't able to fight themselves.
Bordas and Bordas, fighting for justice.
Welcome back to the show. March Madness time, and I've been speaking with West Liberty University men's basketball coach Jim Crutchfield. Coach, the NCAA tournament here that is upon us, a lot of people, of course, people are filling out their brackets and stuff for the Division I tournament. You're in Division II, but the process is very similar in terms of what you go through, the process of having to play this weekend and move on to the next weekend. And it's a grind for the players, but you've been through it a number of times. And, what do you attribute the success you've been able to have to in the NCAA tournament over the past decade or so here?
Well, I wish I knew that for sure, because I try to duplicate again this year. You just prepare for every game as if it's a regular season. I don't think we treat it any differently. The fact we've had pretty good players probably has something to do with it. But I don't think we do anything differently. The format's a little different from D1 to D2, because in D1, you're looking at playing pairs of 2 games. You play 2 games, move on to the regional 2 games, and on to the national tournament. In Division II, you play 3 games twice. You have 8 teams go to a regional setting, and then you take 8 teams to the national tournament. Starts with a field of 64, just like Division I, except instead of going to the Final 4, you go to the Elite 8. So there is a little difference, and you have to play 3 games back to back. Unlike our conference tournament, they're not 3 days in a row. If you can get through the first 2 days, you have a day off there on site to relax, prepare for the championship game in the region. But it's part of conditioning and mental conditioning. How coaches are. We brainwash kids. We tell them, you're not tired, you're ready to go. And if they bought into it, they believe you, they're ready to go.
The success that you've been able to have, how has that changed the type of kid you're able to bring in to West Liberty and the recruiting process for you because of all the success?
I think it gets us in the door anyway with a lot of players, because we have a little name recognition now. Our general recruiting areas are mostly regional: West Virginia, Ohio, Pennsylvania. We branch out when we can, but most high school players in the state of Ohio, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia have actually heard of West Liberty basketball now. So when we have an interest, they at least know who we are. And I felt like when I first got the job, I had to try to explain who we were, what we were about, what kind of team we had. Now they kind of know that. So it gets us in the door anyway. After that, I think the process of recruiting is still a very competitive process. I'd like to think it was going to be easy because we've had good success. Sometimes players look at that as a negative because they think, I don't know if I can get on the court immediately there.
Sure, that's always a concern. People want to play these days.
Yes, this is the world of immediate gratification with a lot of these young guys, and that's what they're looking at. Well, and that's a common question that I get from a recruit is, where do you see me next year, coach, as a freshman? And I'm usually very honest, and I don't want to tell them something that's not going to happen. So I've never told someone they're going to start or I'm going to guarantee them playing time. And we've lost some recruits that way. So I think the fact we've had a pretty good team in some instances has been a little bit of a detriment because of the competition to get on the court. But overall, it gets us in the door is probably a good thing.
One of the things that I would think has happened is that West Liberty basketball's success has also given positive attention to the university as a whole. People come up on the campus because they want to see the game. People hear about West Liberty doing well, but I also would think, and from what I've seen at the games, whether I've watched on TV or been up there, or just even walking around campuses, that the student body has really, gotten excited about West Liberty basketball, and it's something that they really feel a part of.
I think more this year than most. Our student body's been very supportive. Our sports teams are supportive of each other, and I think you're right. I think we've managed to cast a good positive image on the university as a whole. Gotten a little free publicity. You get to the national tournaments, you get on national TV. Put West Liberty's name out there. But I think also what you have to do when you're in that spotlight is you have to have the kind of kids playing for you, young men playing for you that do cast a positive light. And I think we've had some really nice guys, some good guys. The guys know right from wrong and have represented our college real well once the spotlight was cast on them.
I think 13 years now at the helm.
This is number 13.
And 20-win season every year. From what from looking at your record, that's something that can't be said by other coaches. The 20-win season every single year. There's got to be opportunities to move along to Division I. Is it something that you've considered, something you would look at, or you're going to stay put where you are?
Well, I sure like it here. I definitely like it here. The people at West Liberty have been great, and I'm part of West Liberty. I've been there for 28 years now, and my wife's a professor there too. And it's very close to my heart. But like anybody else, you tend to look around sometimes. And you mentioned the 20-win seasons. It kind of makes expectations high, which are okay. But I think back last year, we come back from the national tournament. We had a good year last year. We were, I think, 28-4, 30-4, something like that. And I did my usual daily stop down to Lowe's. When I went in, some guy grabbed me and said, "Don't worry, Coach, tough year. You'll get them next year." And I thought, I need to get out of town. I need a new job. But, you know, it's a great environment to work in. And part of what keeps you coming back is the fact you spend a lot of time with these young men or players, and you kind of get bonded to them. They become part of your family.
Well, Coach, you know, you've been someone who has had unparalleled success in coaching college men's basketball. A lot of people don't realize that right here in this community, we have someone who's had this type of success. You look at the winning percentage, and you know, you compare it to the what I would call the more known names of the Division I programs, Mike Krzyzewski and Bobby Knight, those, and your winning percentage tops them all, and that's something that's pretty spectacular. So congratulations on the success you've had. Good luck in this year's NCAA tournament, and really appreciate you being on the show here today.
Thanks for having me, Jamie. I appreciate that.
All right. We need to take a break. When I come back, we'll keep talking a little bit of basketball and talk about some other sports as well. Stay with us here on the show.
Disasters happen. Pick the team that takes care of them all. Powered by offices in Wheeling, Morgantown, and Pittsburgh, Panhandle Cleaning and Restoration is ready to handle any size emergency at a moment's notice. We have the right people, knowledge, and equipment to respond 24 hours a day.
I'm Bob Huggins. When disaster strikes your home or business, tell your insurance provider you prefer the restoration company the Mountaineers call, Panhandle Cleaning and Restoration.
Don't forget to do your homework.
All right, Mom. Trick or treat.
Here you go. Happy Halloween.
For your home, for your life, for more than 50 years, DeNoon Lumber.
Download the WTRF mobile app for information you need now.
Welcome back to the show. Big theme this week of the show has been March Madness. I appreciated West Liberty University coach Jim Crutchfield for coming onto the show today to talk about his team. And, you know, the NCAA Division I tournament will be here before we know it next week. And, you know, have a good time filling out the brackets. A lot of people do the office pools and figure out who they think might make it all the way. But, you know, one thing that I have watched over the years that I've kind of enjoyed is the NCAA Division I women's tournament. You know, there are some spectacular teams. Connecticut, always the favorite. I mean, has a ridiculous streak when they won they're over 100 games in a row winning, and that's just unheard of. It'll probably never be matched in sports again. But, you know, check out the women's tournament as well. But when you're picking out those brackets on the men's side, you know, it's interesting to see because no matter how much you may watch basketball, think you know, it seems like the person in the office or in the pool, whatever, the one that knows the least about basketball tends to be way up there in the standings. That just goes to show why the NCAA tournament is so great, is that the upsets happen. It is truly madness. I mean, anybody can win this thing. You know, there are some teams you're not going to see a 16 seed usually win. A 16 seed hasn't beaten a 1 seed, and they're certainly not going to go all the way. But, you know, when you get down even to those, you know, 7, 8 seeds, sometimes they can pull it out and win the whole thing. So it's always fun to watch. You know, regardless of the outcome of the Big 12 tournament, WVU Mountaineers are going to be in the tournament. They're going to be a very high seed, probably anywhere between, I would say, you know, a 2 and a 4, somewhere in that range. Or they're going to be probably closer to 3 or 4. But they've had a great season, and you know they're going to, I think, in the tournament make some noise because of the style of play. You know, you don't have as much time to get ready. People can't simulate and practice that pressing style of defense, that quick tempo. So I think that the Mountaineers will have a shot. I still have said all year, concerned about their ability to win away from the Coliseum, but they do have that advantage of the style of play that will help them in the NCAA tournament. So it'll be fun to watch and see how the Mountaineers do. Of course, congratulations to the WVU women's team who won the Big 12 title and will be in the NCAA tournament as well on the women's side. The Pirates are having a good spring, but what does that really mean? You know, you look at those standings that are in the paper every day and you see the Pirates on top of the grapefruit standings, etc. You know, let's be careful about all this because, first of all, you know, the pitchers will go a couple of innings, not pitch regular games like they normally do. There's split squad games where half the team's playing in Bradenton, the other half's playing somewhere else. So you can't really put a lot of stock in the standings in the spring in terms of how a team is going to do during the season. But I do like these things. You know, last year all these things had to go wrong for the Pirates. You know, Garrett Cole, a miserable season, got hurt. Josh Harrison, hurt part of the season. Francisco Cervelli, hurt part of the season. You know, all these different, you know, McCutcheon, maybe the worst season of his career. You know, all these different things happen. If even half of those things correct themselves this year, you know, the Pirates, I think, really have a shot to make their way back into the playoffs. You know, the starting pitching is going to be a key, like always. They don't have Melanson, didn't have him the last part of last season after the trade, but, you know, got to see whether or not the pitching can really do the job it needs to do, both on the starting and in the bullpen. But I really think the Pirates can get back to the playoffs this year. Whether they're good enough to make a run there, you know, we'll see. But I'm eager to see how the Pirates do. But don't put too much stock in what you see out of spring training, because it never means a whole lot. And speaking of spring, you know, college football spring practice is just around the corner now. And for the teams that are maybe rooted by people locally, the Mountaineers, Notre Dame, Ohio State, some questions at quarterback. You know, WVU, Skylar Howard gone now. Will Will Greer, the transfer from Florida, be eligible to play yet? He had to sit out 6 games. You know, a couple years ago at Florida because of some infractions, and then last year was out due to the transfer. Will he be able to play right away, and how will he do? So some questions to be answered there. At Notre Dame, Deshaun Kaiser opting to leave school early to go to the NFL. Malik Zaire looking elsewhere. It looks like Brandon Winbush will be the quarterback for the Fighting Irish in all likelihood, but you know, both of those teams, new guys under center, never know how that's going to go. One team that won't have a new guy under center is Ohio State. JT Barrett back for another year under center at Ohio State, and the first ever 3-time captain at Ohio State. And that is just remarkable. I mean, usually if you have a great career, you're a captain your last year. You know, to do it 2 times is something extremely special. But to be a 3-time captain, especially at a school with the tradition and the success that Ohio State has had, is really remarkable. So JT Barrett primed for another great season. And, you know, Urban Meyer has just done wonderful things there since he's been at Ohio State. They just hardly ever lose. And, you know, last year was considered a disappointment and still a great season. I mean, you know, now it's like Coach Crutchfield was saying earlier, you got to win them all or it's a disappointment. That's the expectations that have been set by Coach Meyer. So we'll keep an eye on these teams as we head through spring and head toward the summer. Have fun watching the basketball, and thanks to all of you for joining us again this week on the show. We'll see you next week on the Jamie Bordas Show.